Be live right now, and I hope everybody can hear me. Let me go into the share screen option and see if this will work. Hopefully it does. Okay, I think that's showing up. Let me double check. You might hear a little echo because I'm checking my YouTube channel to see if this is showing up. Okay, fantastic. It is. Check. You might hear a little echo because I'm checking my. All right. So, anyways, thank y'all to those who tuned in earlier when I was trying to do my little testing video. So, I'm going to briefly talk about Martin Luther King Jr. Today is the celebration of his movement, but technically today is the celebration of his death. And the reason I put this up on the screen is because this caught my eye when I was on Instagram earlier today. And this is his youngest daughter, Bernice. And she says, "Please don't act like everyone loved my father." This is Bernice King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s youngest daughter. Her post says, "Please don't act like everyone loved my father. He was assassinated. A 1967 poll reflected that he was one of the most hated men in America. Most hated. Many who quote him now and evoke him to deter justice today would likely hate and may already hate the authentic king. Hashtag MLK." So shout out to Martin Luther King Jr.'s youngest daughter, Bernice. I like how she spoke her truth. And basically it's like, y'all not finna act like y'all didn't hate my father. And then, gave him a day to honor him, to kind of cover up the guilt of assassinating him, because he definitely was assassinated. And then, of course, they told all the lies about how he had other women and blah, 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 blah. I mean, he might have, ain't no telling, but the story I was told was that the real reason he got assassinated, two reasons. One, of course, he was an advocate for justice. And we got to think back to the 1950s and 60s, okay? Now, my blood mother, she came up in the 60s, and her friends, who are, my play aunts, they would tell us about how they had to, deal with being sprayed and doing the sit-ins during the civil rights movement. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a civil rights activist. I have been my whole life because I grew up in a household where my mother very much so um, taught us about the civil rights movement. She didn't leave it to the schools to educate us. She educated us, and then my father did as well. So my parents, they divorced when I was 5, but both of my parents always taught me about the struggle and what we went through as a people, what our ancestors went through for us to have the freedoms we have today. Even me, I'm an 80s baby. So there definitely, me growing up in Nebraska, which is the home of Malcolm X, Omaha, Nebraska is the home of Malcolm X. There's a lot of us that are freedom fighters, have that same mentality of we not finna take shit off of nobody, especially racism. But growing up how I did, I was used to being called colored, gal, nigger, all kinds of stuff. And this is by teachers, not just your peers and kids. These are adults calling children this. So I want to give that background because there's people who, they love me being outspoken. And then there's people that feel like, these are subjects you shouldn't talk about. And I'm like, why not? These subjects are still prevalent today, to this day. And people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Coretta Scott, all of these civil rights leaders, Rosa Parks, all of them, they were our sacrifice so that we could be free today. Sorry, people keep texting me. So that we could have the freedom we have today. So in my mind, that's always how I'm thinking. And everything that I do is I'm thankful for ancestors like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, all these civil rights activists who fought against racism. So you would expect that they would have been hated during the time that they were making a difference in this country. And Martin Luther King's philosophy was very much so a um, nonviolent approach to justice. Unfortunately, in this day and age, that don't always fly because, as y'all see, all the different Black people that have been killed, Breonna Taylor, all the different people whose lives have been taken. Like we just ain't nothing because of the color of our skin. So I definitely honor Bernice King for, speaking her truth today. I think this was off of Twitter, but I found it on Instagram. And I'm with that. I'm with her speaking her truth. I'm with her coming out and saying, stop pretending, because y'all know y'all didn't like my dad. All right, and then let's see. I want to share this one. I'm gonna have to turn my phone off because. Oh, okay. Hold on. My cousin texted me. Let me put this on vibrate. Okay, so anyway, like I said, my live tonight is about honoring Martin Luther King Jr., his sacrifice, his legacy, racism that I've encountered in Houston, mostly by other minorities, specifically Mexicans. I'm definitely going to talk about that. And, just honoring the civil rights movement and melanin excellence. Now, I need people to understand that, they gave us these titles to degrade our race. Nigger, Negro, Black, all of that stupid shit. Um, and they gave us these titles for the sake of having us think that we are inferior, specifically to white supremacists. Unfortunately, in Houston, especially since I've been back, I've encountered supremacist energy from Mexicans, and not all, because I do have Mexican friends that are not racist. But I'm talking about in terms of business, like properties that I've lived at, businesses that I've gone to. Um, it's a I'm superior than you energy. And like I said, I'm from the home of Malcolm X. I honor Malcolm X and I honor Martin Luther King Jr. But sometimes you can't take a nonviolent approach when your own race is being attacked. Like all these different people, George Floyd, what was the baby with the hoodie that got shot down by Zimmerman, that young man, Breonna Taylor, and so many more lives have been taken. Like we are nothing, we are less than, we're not as important, when this entire country was built on the backs of our ancestors. Let me repeat that one more again. It was the slaves that built the United States of America. They were forced into slavery. They were beaten. They were raped. They were abused. They were mentally, physically, all types of abuse they endured. And they still had to build this country. So to me, any person of any other race that projects a superiority complex, you are ignorant as fuck. Because if it was not for the slaves, there would be no America. If it wasn't for civil rights activists like Martin Luther King, who endured and endured and endured until they killed him. if it wasn't for MLK, Malcolm X, and all the freedom fighters who, even to this day, there are civil rights leaders that have been locked up and political prisoners and all this stupid shit, all because they're working to fight for justice for us to have freedom. So when I think about my grandmother, my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother picked cotton for a living. That was how she earned a living. She picked cotton. We're not talking way back in slavery. We talking 2 generations ago in my own family. So when I come to places where this is realistically how I see it, did or did not your ancestors build this country? If the answer to that is no, you have no right whatsoever to ever project a superiority complex over melanated people. I have a problem with racist people. I don't have a problem with white people. I don't have a problem with Mexicans. I don't have a problem with Asians. I have a problem when you are racist. I have a problem when you project that you are superior to those of us who have melanin skin, because once again, had it not been for the slaves and the freedom fighters, there would be no America for any of the foreigners to have come over here to. I'm talking about this for a reason, because I'm tired of it. Now, I came back to Houston 2 years ago. I've lived at 2 different apartment complexes that were ran by prejudiced and racist Mexican women. I did not understand it. Because how in the fuck y'all think y'all better than us? I don't understand that whatsoever. I really don't. Especially when your ancestors illegally crossed over into this country. My ancestors built it. And if y'all haven't learned anything about the ancestry of the Melanin people, I'm going to need you to go back and view all those videos from the Alabama Brawl. Our ancestors don't play about us. You're not going to disrespect no black person. You're not going to treat us like we less than you. And my high school best friend is Mexican. Her mom, her family, they do not act like they're better than black people. They're not racist. They don't look down on black people. Her mom has always treated me like I'm one of her children. And even my play brother that's here, he's half Mexican. He don't act like that. But for whatever reason, some of these people in these management positions that don't even run companies but just manage them tend to think that they can talk down to black people, that they can talk to us crazy, that you can condescend to us. And I remember there was a post on Instagram under John Leguizamo's post where he talked about, if America wants to give something back, give Texas back to Mexico. I'm like, last time I checked, this entire country belonged to the slaves. I'm going to need y'all to stop projecting this superiority complex when your ancestors did not build this fucking country. I'm going to need y'all to go back and do your own history and research. And one of the girls, because I commented on that, I said, this mentality right here is exactly why some, not all, but why some of y'all think y'all better than us. And again, our ancestors built this shit. Our civil rights leaders fought and died and got lynched and burned and hanged and whipped and shot and killed and beheaded and raped in Omaha, Nebraska itself. And I'm glad that I understand even more deeper knowledge of, Malcolm X's legacy in my hometown. What they used to do is they would lynch the slaves. They would set their bodies on fire, and they would drag the dead, burnt carcasses up and down downtown Omaha, Farnham, the main street in downtown Omaha. And again, that's where I'm from. But in the hood in Omaha, it's all dedicated to Malcolm X because that's his home. If you go to 24th Street, it ain't nothing but melanin excellence posted everywhere. Malcolm X celebrated everywhere. Recently, I was talking with my mom, and she told me that my grandmother, my same grandmother that picked cotton, lived down the street from Malcolm X's family. My grandma lived in the projects. We grew up in the hood, where drive-bys were an everyday event. So for me, growing up in that environment where these leaders have fought, they have endured so much to make sure that we could have the freedoms we have today, so that I could have the freedom to sit up here on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and, talk my truth. Had it not been for them, none of what has happened in America would have happened. And I feel that all races need to honor not just Dr. Martin Luther King, but every civil rights leader and every slave that died to build this country. And that's what I put on John Leguizamo's post. I said, all of you owe the ancestors the deepest respect. And it's disrespectful as hell to say that Texas belonged to Mexicans and that Black people weren't as important. Bitch, we built this shit. The fuck you talking about? Y'all ancestors didn't build this country. And then one lady had the nerve to jump in there and say, well, we had to pick cotton too. Yeah, there was certain people that were indentured servants. All races. If you were poor and that was your only way of earning a living, so be it. But your ancestors didn't know Mexicans get lynched in America for being Black. But our ancestors did. And they had to build this shit. So imagine you got this white supremacist master that beats the fuck out of you, whips the fuck out of you, rapes your wife, your children, and then y'all still got to go out in the hot field, pick cotton, and build the country, only to be degraded by people who have illegally crossed over into our country. That's what I said. And one of the girls was trying to say, well, that's racist. I said, no, it ain't. It's the truth. Because I know people in real life who are Mexican that are in this country right now that are not legal, that they're not legal. People I know in real life. And never once have I judged them. But what I do judge is when you come over here and act like you better than us. That's where no, we're not going to do that. That's where I got to educate you on the history of this country. That's when I got to check you on that bullshit. And people get mad when you start checking them on that bullshit. What the fuck do you think Martin Luther King Jr. did? You think he stood there and just politely let y'all be racist? Nah, he spoke out against that shit. Which is why he got assassinated, like every other civil rights leader that they killed that was making a difference. And then you give one day to honor his memory, the day you took him out. Now you want to sugarcoat it with, well, let's celebrate. You killed this man on this day because he stood for justice. I'm very glad his daughter spoke on that. Because every day he should be celebrated, not just January 15th. Every day. Every civil rights leader who fought for justice needs to be celebrated every day. And every other race needs to bow down and honor the ancestors. And stop projecting that you're superior. You are ignorant as fuck. Slavery was one of the worst things to ever happen in this country. But it built the country. The blood of the ancestors built this country. Strange fruit, the song Southern trees bear a strange fruit. Blood on the leaves, blood at the roots, black bodies swinging in the summer breeze. You ain't never heard no song about no Mexicans swinging in the summer breeze. The last 3 Mexican races that I dealt with, I checked all 3 of them bitches. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Who do you think you are talking to me like I ain't shit? Told one to her face, you got me fucked up. Then she tried to play that Karen shit. Oh, no, you had all the smoke. You had all the shit to say over the phone. But now that I'm hearing your face talking to you, now you want to act like you scared. Miss, I'm better than Black folks. So nah, I'm not with none of that shit. And as long as I am breathing, I'm going to speak out against it. And to your face, I'm going to check you. And that doesn't make me racist. That makes me a leader. Because my grandmother, my maternal grandmother that picked cotton, didn't pick cotton to have her granddaughter be degraded by somebody who ain't even from this goddamn country. Let's keep it a stack right now. That's what I said under John Leguizamo's post. I said, your ancestors illegally waded through the water to get over here. My ancestors built this shit. So who the fuck are you to project that you better than us? Who are you to say, oh, well, they ruled? No, they didn't rule nothing. They came over here and pillaged just like fucking Christopher Columbus did. And they told all them lies about him. Then you grow up and find out that motherfucker raped and pillaged. Thanksgiving, all of that shit was a lie. So on my platform, it's going to be speaking the truth always. I'm raw and uncensored. If, the way I speak offends you, get the fuck off my channel because it ain't going to change. I'm a whole entire Scorpio and I'm outspoken as fuck. And I'm really tired of the ignorance. The more melanin people I talked to here in Houston, I said, I don't know if things have changed since I was here before, but why is it that I've been encountering white supremacist energy from not all, but a lot of Mexicans, especially those that are in positions of management? They said, oh, because they really believe they're better than us. Like the people who are from here, they're used to that. They're used to receiving racist, supremacist energy from Mexicans, and I have to speak against that. I have to. Y'all, I don't know who told y'all or made you feel that you were superior, but you are not. Now, if one of your ancestors was black and they were one of the slaves that built this country, then you might be able to say you a little superior, but your ancestors didn't build none of this shit. And y'all are still illegally crossing over into our country, still to this day. So when you over here, show some respect to those of melanin complexion, show respect to our ancestors that paved the way for there to be an America in the first goddamn place. Show some respect. And every time you disrespect, I'm going to check that shit to your face. You can call me what you want. Because, baby, if I was racist, I'd be calling you all type of racist names. So anybody racist, I'm checking you on your shit. The dumb bitch that said that shit, I was like, I ain't finna go back and forth with you. I know who the hell I am. Bitch, you don't even fucking know me. I said what I said. Then D.L. Hughley on there cooning, acting like a house nigga, reposting the shit. I'm like, how are you as a black man co-signing this shit? These motherfuckers already act like they better than us. And a lot of people jumped under my comment and agreed. Y'all do anything for likes and clout and follow. But those that keep it real are the ones you want to assassinate. That's why MLK was assassinated. Also, MLK was assassinated because he did not want to, from what I had heard and researched. This is alleged, but I did find this in research. That supposedly he was being initiated into one of the Masonic groups and didn't want to complete initiation. And that's the real reason why they killed him. At the end of the day, he stood for justice. Anyone who stands against tyranny, anyone who stands against injustice are always attacked. I had to recently check another female at a property that I stayed at that was talking to me crazy. I said, let me tell you something. I don't go back and forth with low vibrational people. Once I've said what I had to say, that's it. But what I will always do is stand up for myself. If you have melanin in your skin, you are royalty. They conditioned our people in this country that we were less than when they taught slavery. They conditioned melanin people to think of themselves as inferior. They conditioned through the Willie Lynch mentality. For those who have never heard of Willie Lynch, Google Willie Lynch, let's make a slave. And that is where you will find what you still see today amongst the stereotypical behavior in our race. That's where you'll find your religion. Matter of fact, look up Willie Lynch, let's make a nigger Christian. That is where you will find the foundation of the white supremacist version of Christianity. that a lot of y'all still celebrate today in your churches. That's why you always see a white Jesus in a black church. Now, how the fuck I'm 6 years old asking my mom, Mom, why is Jesus always white? I'm 6 asking my mom that. My third eye opened when I was 11. I was like, how is it that we all came from a white Christ, but we're all different races? Nobody could ever answer that question. Then you grow up and you start doing your own research and you find out that civilization started in Egypt, which is in Africa. So civilization started with melanin people. And even in the Bible, it talks about how we got scattered, humanity got scattered, and different languages and different variations of colors were made depending upon how the sun either shined or did not shine in certain areas. That's why certain people are pale, and that's why certain people are dark. But melanin is in fact the scientific component that makes our skin brown. And in Caucasians, they don't contain melanin. So who's truly superior and who's truly inferior? Even scientifically, you can look up the neutrons and the makeup of our skin is melanin. It baffles my mind when I think about the ignorance. And it is my job to raise the vibration of our people. We are never inferior to any race, especially another minority. In fact, the melanin in our skin makes us royalty. And the true Christ, Yeshua, was of melanin complexion. That's going to be a whole different live. But on this day of Martin Luther King celebration, or as they say, celebration, I don't even like celebrating that this man got assassinated. Because this was the worst day for his family. This was the worst day for his wife. This was the worst day for his children. They lost their father. She lost her husband. The world lost a civil rights activist. So what should be celebrated is what he taught. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking a nonviolent approach that's actually considered a higher vibrational response to things. I am one that I don't like to fight because I know what I'm capable of, and I don't want to go to jail. But somebody put their hands on me, especially what they went through back in the civil rights movement. Oh yeah, we fighting. You want to turn a hose on black people just because they black and they sitting there peacefully trying to eat. My mom and them was telling me them stories, man, about the sit-ins, about how she grew up in the whites only era. She talks about it all the time. Going places and seeing whites only, and you can't enter and you can't be served and you're treated like you're a fucking dog. She said that the way I grew up, the white man was the devil to us because we were always hunted. So imagine being, 10, 11, 12 years old, and you could literally lose your life just walking to school. She told me the story about how her father, she said, my school was just a couple of blocks away from home before her dad died. And she said he would stand in the front and watch her walk the whole 2 blocks, and how she was raised and taught that if you come in contact with a white person to not look them in the eye. She says how we were trained. Don't look them in the eye. Keep your head down. Say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, and keep going. Can you imagine growing up like that? Where these people, because they're not of the same color, feel that they have so much power over you that you have to think inferior of yourself just to go to school. And then we talk a few decades later, I'm a little kid. My mom worked 3 jobs. Sometimes my sister and I had to walk ourselves to school. And yes, sometimes the gangs would watch over us as we walk back and forth to school. But to be told that you cannot make eye contact with a person because they're white, and to keep your head down and say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. And people wonder why I ain't with none of that shit today. Because I'm my ancestors' greatest dream come true. I ain't taking none of that shit off of none of you motherfuckers. I wish a motherfucker would. I'm going to tell you to your face, you full of shit, because there's more of us than there are of you. And as much as they call us a minority, we are technically the majority. And if more and more melanated people would come together in a space of unity, they would see our power. So there is no way me as a melanin female is going to ever allow another race to make me feel that I'm inferior. Because I'm going to tell you every time that my ancestors built this shit, and you need to bow down and show some respect. Then I'm going to let my ancestors handle your ass, because they will actually do much worse to you than anything I could ever do. That's the other beauty about being a melanated queen and a goddess. This is the year where everything is exposed. This is the year where truth is being told. This is the year where I speak my truth without any fear, because any energy rising up against me will fall by the wayside immediately and be destroyed, and chaos and confusion will come about their camps, and death and hell will fall their evil intentions back to them. You can never come against me and think you're going to win. And you racist motherfuckers, you definitely not going to come against me and win. Because what I'm going to do, if you managing anything, I'm going to report your motherfucking ass for discrimination. Or I'm going to use the system in my favor. And when it's all said and done, you will never treat another melanated person the way you treated me. When it's all said and done. And then my ancestors are going to handle your ass too. Y'all thought the Alabama brawl was bad? Shit. My ancestors are ruthless. They do not play. They will fuck with you, your household, and your whole lineage. Because these are the slaves that built this country that are my ancestors. Understand that. And in as much as y'all tried so hard to degrade and to tear down this man, Martin Luther King Jr., his legacy still stands. Over 50 years later, his legacy still stands. So you might have assassinated him, but his children have and will continue to carry out his legacy. Let me share this screen, because this actually ties into what I'm talking about. Okay. Let me get that up on the platform. So as y'all can see, this is an article about Martin Luther King Jr. talking about systemic racism. King often discussed how racial equality cannot be achieved without structural change. And this was in the state of Texas, ironically. But this photo they took, the article was written in the state of Texas, but this photo was taken in California. So that's what I'm saying. Like, he fought for equality, meaning you're not better, we're not inferior. Then we got his daughter, Bernice, talking about his legacy. She was 5 when they assassinated him. 53 years ago today. She said, 53 years ago today, 1 week after my 5th birthday, you were gone. Assassinated for answering a call to conscience, for speaking truth to power, for being a drum major for justice, who sought to rid the world of racism, militarism, and poverty. I miss you still, always. And then she put down below, be a king. I love that. Then we got, what was his name? Yeah, Jonathan Major, stupid. Look, I'm inserting this because I ain't gonna lie. I'm just as pissed off as she was. Nigga, how the fuck you trying to compare Megan Good to Coretta Scott King when you have never, ever came to the barbecue? You have always dealt with white women. The first time you get with a black female is when you get in trouble. And then you want to talk about she held me down like Coretta Scott King. Black women have always held down our men. Y'all are the ones that chose to go running after these other races and have this fascination with conquering a white woman. I will never understand that. I just will not. But Bernice spoke on this and she said, my mother was a legend and an icon. Do not use my mom as a pawn. Yeah, she said my mama was a force. Let me share this tag. She said my mama was a force in response to Jonathan Major's stupid shit, and he just doing his dumbass shit for clout with his stupid ass. Let me go back up. Yeah, she says she wants her mother's legacy to be properly remembered. She said my mother was not a prop. She was a peace advocate before she met my father and was instrumental in him speaking out against the Vietnam War. Please understand, my mama was a force. And then you got this stupid motherfucker here sitting up there trying to compare Coretta Scott to Megan Good because he was found guilty of assaulting his ex-girlfriend who was white. You a whole entire, I swear. This is that cooning house nigga shit right here. So white lady presses charges on you. You run to a black female and then want to compare the black female to Coretta Scott King, which was completely insulting. When you've been living your whole adult life chasing after white women, I can't. I cannot with him. Whatever he gets, he deserves. Nigga, you did that shit. But stop using Coretta Scott King as a comparison for Megan Good. Stupid as hell. So I just had to insert that in there because I'm like, y'all are not helping the movement when you publicly cooning. You're not helping the movement doing that shit. You're not. Not at all. Let me go back to this one. But yeah, she talks about losing her father. And Bernice King does serve as the CEO of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. Another thing I want to insert in here, because again, I told you I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, which is the home of Malcolm X. I grew up in the 80s. So there was an elementary school. Matter of fact, my first elementary school I went to was called the Martin Luther King Jr. Grade school. But back then it was only kindergarten through third grade. And then after third grade, you had to go to like a regular elementary school. And that was the only time I saw one or two, black teachers, because it was in the heart of the hood off of 30th Street in Omaha. But after that, growing up, none of my teachers were black. You always saw predominantly white teachers. You might see a Hispanic or a Native American teacher, maybe one. Nebraska very much so made sure that Black people were aware of their position of inferiority. So I did not see a Black teacher until I got to college, when I was going to Metropolitan Institute for Culinary Arts for one of my elective classes, which was my entrepreneurship class. And this is in college. That was the first time I had a Black instructor. So we talking from second grade all the way through high school, and then my first year of college. Well, that was the first time I had a Black instructor. And that's why I speak so much about civil rights and equality and freedom fighting, because even though I'm from the home of Malcolm X, I am an 80s baby. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s where niggas was still being treated like that whites only shit that my mom and them grew up with. And I decided to start taking up a position of speaking out against it, especially as a young girl, me researching about Martin Luther King and what he did, and Malcolm X, and really get into like the Black Panther movement. In fact, I used to call myself a Black Panther when I was in high school. I even started a Black American caucus in high school because my parents, we moved from Nebraska. We moved from Lincoln to Hastings, and Hastings was a super small ass town. So by the time I got to high school, when I went to Lincoln High, it was very diverse. It was majority Black kids, Mexicans, some Asians, and whites, but it was more minorities than it was whites. So coming from grade school where it's predominantly white to high school where it's predominantly, um, minorities, it was like, dope. And then we had our own like after school Black groups where we did the step chain, we did the step in and pretty much like what they do in college at fraternities. We were doing that in high school. So we had like the Black step groups where we would, do our little step shows. And I remember, matter of fact, I was in art and I always would be drawing and painting. And this was during the so deaf era, like 93, 94. And I'm a teenager, right? So I remember I would always be doodling in classes when I was bored because I got ADHD. So if I'm bored, like I start, sketching, doodling. And I seen the so deaf logo in one of the magazines I had, and it was the so deaf guy with the big ass afro and the glasses. And I will never forget, I copied it. Like I didn't trace it. I literally looked at the photo and made it. And my art teacher was like, "That's pretty cool. You should, submit that for your project." And she was a white lady. I was like, "All right, cool." So I had drew the so deaf logo. And what I did when I started my own Black American Caucus, I made that same logo, but instead of so deaf, I put in the Afro BAC to stand for Black American Caucus. And I started my own extra, like elective. It was free. I didn't get paid for this. I did this outside of school. I started my own Black American Caucus group using the Afro guy from So Deaf, but putting my BAC as the letters in the Afro. And so many people started coming to my after school group because I would talk about stuff like this. I would talk about freedom fighting. I would talk about all the stuff they weren't teaching in school. This is how much of a historian and scholar I have always been. I would go to the library. I would get encyclopedias. I would get all of the Black history books that they didn't have at the library at my actual high school. And I would get all of the Black excellence stuff that wasn't being taught. I would teach about the African dynasties, the African royalty over in Africa. I would teach about African spirituality. Even though I was raised in church and religion and our parents had a church, I would still research these things. And I started my BAC group my sophomore year. And within a year, I had not only my friends, like even my Mexican friends would come to my BAC, and then their parents would come. And some of my white friends would come, and their parents would come. And then, like, friends of friends, like my little group went from just like my two high school Mexican homegirls to like 15 to 20 people would come. And my junior year, we ended up getting a new principal that was exceptionally racist. Like he called all of us nigger and colored when our parents weren't around all the time. And he was so racist. And my Mexican friends, he would call them spicks and beaners. We're like, how are you calling the students all these racial names? And like, we're students. So enough of us started complaining to like the head over the school. And eventually he did get fired. But unfortunately, while he was there, he shut down my group. Because this was back in the day when like there was no cell phone, there was no smartphone. You just went to school, and if you had to call somebody, you either had to use the phone at school or go to a payphone if your school even had a payphone. So I would be using like the old school projectors. Like I would literally go to the public library. I would get all the Black history books. I would make photocopies at like the library where I think they charged us like 5 or 10 cents to make copies back then. I would make photocopies and I would take those photocopies to school, get the old school ass projector and put those copies on the projector and do my presentation. Oh my God, now that I think about it, I was doing PowerPoint before PowerPoint even existed. So when I tell y'all like I've been a tech my whole life, I really have. I just really put them two together. That was way before PowerPoint. But that's how much I have been an advocate for, equality, being influenced by Martin Luther King Jr., being influenced by Malcolm X and all the other civil rights activists, even Harriet Tubman. So I would teach about all the stuff. I said, we're so much more than what they taught us. And that white man did not like that. He was like, who are you to come in here spreading your nigger bullshit? And I was like, he's really sitting in his office talking to me like this because my parents ain't here. Because I was in the office with him by myself. And again, this is way back before smartphones. So you couldn't record nothing, unless you had an old school recorder with a tape in it. But yeah, like when I tell you I've grown up overcoming racism is in growing up in the home of Malcolm X, where there is so much racism. That is the reason I don't take shit off of nobody no more. And let me share this one too. Here is the website, Nebraska Malcolm X House site, Omaha. So this is where I am from. And there are so many Black people back home who we do support one another, but of course, there's also the crabs in a barrel mentality ones too. So for me putting out the truth about these civil rights leaders, me sharing my truth, me sharing my experience, it is literally to continue to make people understand that while some people will say, oh, you're pulling the race card, no, it's because you're disrespecting my race. It's because you're belittling my race. It's because you're trying to make us feel inferior when we, in fact, are not. People like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and all the other civil rights leaders did the very same thing I'm doing now. Speaking out against injustice, speaking out against racism, speaking out against inequality, and making a difference to educate those that I don't care how many shades lighter your skin is than mine, you are not better than me. And my future children will be raised to believe that they are royalty because they are. So, all of this bullshit y'all be talking about, Jonathan Majors allowing them to use him as a goddamn coon with his stupid ass. Like I said, this man here, I'm so glad that his daughter spoke out about it. This is Coretta Scott King. This is the daughter this is Bernice, the youngest daughter of MLK. And this is Jonathan Major, stupid ass, who has done nothing but chase white women his whole life. And now that he done got caught up in some bullshit behind a white woman, now you want to run alongside Megan Good. And I don't know what type of unhealed energy Megan Good is carrying that's making her even deal with a nigga like this. I don't know what that's about. Because I know she was married to Devon Franklin and supposedly said he was too soft or whatever. But then you get with a man who's been accused of domestic violence and assault by a white woman. And now she held me down like Coretta Scott King. I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. It's really not, because this is actually an insult to his mother. Or to her mother. That's why she said what she said. My mother was not a prop. She was a peace advocate. When have we ever seen Megan Good publicly advocate for our race? When have we ever seen her be an active activist, even in the Black Lives Matter movement? Like, did we see Megan Good ever on some Black Panther shit? Have we ever seen her on some civil rights equality? No, we haven't. So why in the hell he thought comparing Megan Good as a girlfriend to Coretta Scott King, who was the wife of this gigantic civil rights activist, is because he's trying to make himself look good. Oh, well, the white people ain't gonna fuck with me no more, so let me run over to the Black community. Nigga, we don't want you. Because you ain't been fucking with us forever. Like I said, you ain't been coming to the barbecue. So, and they look a hot mess. He looked confused as hell always, like he about to beat somebody ass. And she looked crazy as hell and skinny as hell. It just, I don't understand it. How these two are trying to compare themselves to MLK and Coretta Scott King is crazy to me. And it says cooning all over it. Y'all cooning for the white people. So I'm not with that shit. Anyways, I'm about to jump off here because I need to eat my dinner. But I wanted to speak on how I feel about all of this today. Having dealt with racism here in Houston, and it, like I said, it just baffles me that I've experienced more racism with ignorant as some, not all, ignorant as Mexicans and white people, but people are ignorant in all shades and colors. There's ignorant Black people too. But the difference is, for me, I feel like everybody is equal because we are. None of us are better than the other. And it's time out for y'all accepting racism. Like I said, even when I talk to locals that are from here, they're like, well, yeah, it's just pretty much known that, they feel like we're less than them. I said, then why don't y'all stand up for yourselves? Why don't you check these motherfuckers and let them know who you are? Again, from the home of Malcolm X, we check motherfuckers where I'm from. You're not finna talk to us crazy. Go to the north side of Omaha and talk crazy and see if you make it out of that motherfucker alive. Go to 30th. Go to 30th and Ames. Go anywhere on 30th Street talking crazy to a Black person and see if you make it out that motherfucker alive. I'm just saying, like, y'all got to get that shit out your system. Please get it out your system. And those of y'all co-signing John Leguizamo's post, y'all ought to be ashamed of y'all damn self, especially D.L. Hughley. But D.L. Hughley always been a house nigga from the jump. He always been a coon. Always. I don't even know why the hell they had him on King's of Comedy, because nigga's not funny at all, ever. The only funny thing I've heard D.L. Hughley say was that I want to do something else when he was talking about his wife not wanting him to do anal on her during his birthday. Outside of that, I've never seen him advocate for the Black community. I've never seen him do any sort of civil rights, nothing. Same with Megan Good, and damn sure with Jonathan Majors. So it's like, let's get some people in the public eye who actually advocate for our race, who actually advocate for equality and justice, and who are not afraid to speak out against it. With that being said, I'm about to end this live because I'm about to eat my dinner and chill out. So I do honor Martin Luther King Jr. today. I am sending love to his children, especially his daughter Bernice. And to the rest of y'all who are on this ignorant superiority complex, please take your ignorant ass to a damn library and research. Do your research. And please understand, the United States of America would not have existed without the slaves, period. That alone should be enough for you to respect us. This country would not exist had it not been for the slaves. The whole foundation, every ground of this country has the blood of slaves in it. Every state, every street, the very ground you sit on, the very ground you walk on has the blood of slaves. Remember that the next time you think you about to talk to a Black person crazy, that you about to put us down or make us feel like we're inferior. Our ancestors built this shit. Our ancestors died in this shit. So show some respect to every melanin person you come in contact with, and miss every last one of us with that ignorant ass bullshit. On that note,